Out to the Act on Climate March. We are gathering today because the premiers are going to be meeting to talk about climate change and climate change only on Monday, but unfortunately Stephen McNeil decided that he doesn't need to be there. But I'm glad that all of us think that it's super important. We are going to get started with an opening prayer from Billy Lewis, who is an urban Indigenous elder, who's going to welcome us all to this unceded Mi'kmaq territory that we are living, working, organizing on.
Well, with a mixed crowd like this, I don't want to upset the atheists, so it's not exactly a prayer. But what it is why we're all gathered here today, is to honor the earth itself. And I think that's what gets missed. Here we are in Mi'kma'ki, unceded Mi'kmaq territory, and that's what it's about. It's about the land itself, and all of us have a role in protecting that land. And so, as much as I was tempted this winter, in fact, I'm still recovering from cracked ribs from falling twice, so all that snow, I was tempted to blame it on Shubenacadie Sam, but I thought, well, he's only getting his signals from the earth itself, which is saying there's something wrong here. And so rather than throw him in the stew pot, I figured we've got to learn to take care of the earth ourselves. And that's what this gathering is about. And so it's not only about the land, but the rights of the land, not just the rights of individual human beings or even individual communities, but all of us related to the land, because that's what a lot of in the indigenous languages interpret. Like, we don't name our rivers after explorers, and it's named after the conditions of the land itself. And so that's what we're here today, to honor the land and to come together as people of the land, wherever we're from, to honor that land. And that's why I'm here today. And I won't be marching, which I'll catch you at the other end. But anyway, Walalio.
Thank you very much for that, Billy. Next, I'm going to invite Kaylee Kennedy up here, who's a member of Solidarity Halifax, an organization that is against capitalism and systems of oppression. So we're going to give it up for Kaylee.
Hi everyone. So as Tori said, my name's Kaylee, and I've been asked to come up here and kind of introduce a moment of silence for Rehtaeh Parsons. So some of you may know that there is a demonstration happening right now in Cole Harbour, Rehtaeh's Walk. And the organizers of this march and the organizers of that protest wanted to connect and honor Rehtaeh and say that, just because we're here doesn't mean that we don't see the importance and the importance of honoring survivors of sexualized violence. And so the organizers of Rehtaeh's Walk wanted us to acknowledge that Rehtaeh did have a lot of enthusiasm and passion for environmental issues, and I also want to remind us that the same systems of structural violence that allow us to say that our earth and our world are not important are tied up in the forms of structural violence that tell us that women are not important in our society. Women and gender nonconforming and trans people are not valued, and so that we need to fight. In order to fight one form of oppression and one form of structural violence, we need to really fight them all. So I'm going to ask that everyone take a moment of silence to remember Rehtaeh before we get started today. Thank you.
Hi. Next up, we're going to have Tom Duck, who is an atmospheric scientist and a professor at Dalhousie University, and he's going to come up and say a few words. So I'd like to welcome Tom Duck.
Well, good afternoon. It's wonderful to see so many friends and new friends out here today. Please give yourselves all a hand. So today we join thousands of people across the country, people in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Quebec City, St. John, and more. We're raising our voices in solidarity to declare this: the time to act on climate is now. The science is clear. Our planet is warming, the Arctic is thawing, glaciers are melting, and the sea level is rising. And it's due to our burning of fossil fuels. The way forward is equally clear. We need to end our dangerous dependence on fossil fuels. Now, this will not happen overnight, but it can't wait until tomorrow. In 3 days' time, the premiers from across the country will meet in Quebec City to discuss climate change. Many provinces are already taking this fight very seriously. British Columbia, for example, we know already has a price on carbon. Ontario has eliminated coal-fired power plants. And just yesterday, we discovered that Ontario is going to join Quebec in a new cap-and-trade system. This is wonderful. So the provinces are making some excellent progress. In fact, even here in Nova Scotia, we've been gradually reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. However, there's much left to be done. We call on our premiers to be bold and to restore Canada's reputation as a leader in environmental protection. Unfortunately, there are some in office who refuse to confront the growing threat of climate change. There are some who would leave future generations a climate catastrophe. To them, I say this: we have voices and we have votes, and we're not afraid to use them. However, action is needed for more than just our premiers. We need decisive action from our Prime Minister. It is beneath a rich nation like Canada to be a laggard on climate change. So I call on all political parties to publicly endorse the scientific consensus on climate change. I call on all political parties to reject new fossil fuel projects like pipelines that can only further damage future climate. Business as usual is not an option. All right, here we go. Let me talk about something else that's rather close to my heart here. Our universities have responsibilities, both to our students and to society. University science tells us we need to move toward a low-carbon future. It is simply unconscionable for universities to be betting their endowment funds on the opposite outcome. The time to act on divestment is now. Finally, to all of you, I have to say this: the conversation can't end here. There are things that we all need to do. Political will is created through a public conversation. I urge you to engage regularly on the social media. This is my homework to all of you. I'm a professor, so I've got to give you all homework. Sorry. I urge you all to engage regularly on the social media. Your words on climate change will inspire your family, your friends, your neighbors, and your colleagues to add their own voices and to create the space that's needed to tackle this problem. The politicians can't do this on their own. We need to create that space, and we do it by having a very, very visible public conversation. It is action from the grassroots that is ultimately going to win hearts and minds. So let me conclude by saying this. For all of us who share this fragile planet, climate change is not a problem for tomorrow. The time to act on climate is now. Thank you very much.
All right, we'd like to call up Solidarity to come up, and while they are getting organized up here, we'd just like to give a shout out to all of the groups that were involved in making today a huge success. We've got Stop Energy East Halifax over here, the Council of Canadians. We've got Citizens Climate Lobby, of course, Solidarity Halifax. Other groups that the Blue Dot Movement. What other groups? Divest Dalhousie. The Halifax Labour District Labour Council. Other groups?
Halifax Media Co-op.
Halifax Media Co-op. We also have Rad Rhythms keeping us in time all day. The Ecology Action Center is here. All right, and now I'm going to hand it over to Solidarity.
Don't forget the Green Party.
Just before we sing, I'm just going to make a quick pitch for Solidarity. We sing at events, picket lines, protests, rallies, conventions, conferences, and we just are looking for people to join us. We're currently a group of about 6 or 7, but we'd like to make it 12 or 15, so whenever we have an event, instead of getting 3 or 4 people, we can maybe get 6 or 7 or 8 together. So on the back of the song sheets that we handed out is information about how to contact us and even the rehearsal time and place for our next 3 rehearsals. So if you have any interest and you want to drop in at a rehearsal and see if it's for you, please do. And if you don't have a song sheet to sing along, stick up your hand and Evan will bring you one. In front of you.
Fields of green, once more laid down by the hungry hand. How long can you give and not receive, and feed this world ruled by greed, and feed this world
We didn't want to leave you sad.
I was dreaming in my dreaming of an aspect bright and fair, and my sleeping it was broken. What a dream it lingered near, in the form of shining valleys where the pure air recognized, and my senses truly opened. I awakened to the cry that the people have the power. On the me, the grace is shower. It's decree. The people rule. People have the power. People have the power. The people have the power. The people have the power. National aspects become suspects. As if to hear, and the army sees advancing because the people have their ear, and the shepherds and the soldiers, they believe from the stars, changing visions and laying on to in the form of shining valleys, recognize. In the open, I awaken to the cry. People have the power. People have the power. The people have the power. We want to hear you. People have the power. There were deserts, I saw fountains, running cream, the waters rise, and they stood there together, but to laugh from criticize, and the leopard and the lamb, they together truly found. I was hoping in my hoping to recall what I had found. I was dreaming in my dreaming, God knows your view. As I surrender to my sleeping, commit my dream to you. People have the power. The 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 power to dream, the power to rule, the power to wrestle the world from fools. It's decree, the people rule. It's decree, the people rule. Listen, I believe everything we dream can come to pass in our union. We can turn the world around. We can turn the world around. People got the power. The people have the power. The people have the power. The people have the power. Yeah, 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 the people, power, people, power, people, power, people have power. Thank you very much.
Not ever, not today. No Tarzans, no way. Not ever, not today. No Tarzans, no way. Not ever, not today. No Tarzans,
No way, not ever, not today. No Tarzans, no way, not ever, not today. No Tarzans, no way, not ever, not today. No Tarzans, no way, not ever, not today. No Tarzans, no way, not ever, not today. No Tarzans, no way, not ever, not today. Thank you, solidarity. Also, if you are on the Twitter, the Twitter sphere, you can participate in the national conversation by using hashtag #ActOnClimate. But we also want to be using our own for Nova Scotia, so at Stephen McNeil is his handle if you want to send a direct message to our Prime Minister that you want him to act on climate. And also, Make McNeil Act is our hashtag for the march today. So make sure that you're sharing photos and messages through that. And next, we are going to have one of the most inspiring women I have ever met. She is a mother and a grandmother and a journalist and a land defender who has put herself in the way of protecting the land and the earth and the water and her community. So I'm going to do my best to get her name right. O Agnuk Ip Gisnik Geek Bisan.
Hello, everyone. I'm really honored to be here to speak, and I'd like to thank everybody that's here today. Nina Delwisi o adnogup kisnukipisan. Leo yelsi buktuk. Walali o tandel bedayo nige giskuk. Kechulwa kilo gege midere mom. Nige kumuk nige dandel lugudik nige. Mubaznin Nanjunk Nogama emodijikla sit amug. Munabas negamog nuda egabo anamadim. Nuda akilo abo anamadultino. Kisigo majuinog. Mijoajishk. Ebijik. Jinamug. Mauyabo anamadultio. Mogignai tandel dayo tandel lugudio nige. I'm very honored to be here today because I can see that you guys really care, as we do. We are all here to share the earth, the planet. I can see there's little children here and elders. And we have to do something about it. Because if we don't, everybody's going to get affected. Our water's going to be destroyed. And I don't think you guys want that. For me, what I experienced, what happened in New Brunswick, that was really hard. But I knew I had to do something. You guys might not all know what happened. You guys weren't there. But I want to say that we all have to stand together. We all have to stand strong. And the song that I heard, power. Power to the people. And that is true. And we have to do it to our children. We all have to take care of each other. We all have to take care of the environment. So it's really kind of hard for me to stand here and I tell you what happened to me in New Brunswick is too hard. It was frightening. And the violence that happened with the cops, that has to stop. And we are the people that has to do something. And another thing I heard, votes. Is so true. We put them there, we can take them out. To make a change, we're the ones that's going to have to make the change because they're not doing anything right now. So we all have to fight. Encourage everybody to be here. Everybody, even this guy here. His dummy is here, but he's not here. So I'm very honored to be here. And keep fighting. Don't be scared. Let's not be scared of the cops, because they can't take us. What we have is our power. That's our power, and nobody can take that from us. Thank you. And let's go break that door down. Power to the people! Thank you. You're welcome.
That was amazing, thank you. Next, and our last speaker before we head down to City Hall is Kyle Buett, who is the president of the Halifax Dartmouth District Labour Council.
How's it going today, everybody? It's great to see so many folks from so many of our city's social movements out today to call for action on climate justice and to oppose the actions of the federal and provincial governments. My name's Kyle Buett. I'm the president of the Halifax Dartmouth District Labour Council, but I'm here today speaking on behalf of Solidarity Halifax, and I'm a member of the coordinating committee for Solidarity Halifax. Solidarity Halifax is an anti-capitalist organization here in the city. Our goal is to build education and alternatives to capitalism and to say that another world is actually possible and we can make it happen. Sisters, brothers, comrades, friends, I want to talk to you about three things today. The first is the austerity agenda that we are facing from federal and provincial governments as well as right-wing employers in the private sector. Second, I want to talk to you about the impact capitalism has on the climate and the struggle for climate justice. And finally, I want to talk about the political program that we'll need and the organization we're going to need to make sure that we can fight both capitalism and challenge the climate crisis and produce an economy and a society that is sustainable and just. So first off, what is the austerity agenda? The austerity agenda is the ruling class's response to the 2008 recession. When the economy went off the rails, the ruling class, the people who run our economy and our governments, decided that they were not going to actually go after the real culprits who caused the problem, but they were going to pretend that somehow nurses, teachers, bus drivers, electricians were the ones who crashed our economy. Bullshit. Working people did not crash our economy. The banks crashed our economy. The oil companies crashed our economy. Big Pharma crashed our economy. Those are the real culprits. They're the ones who caused the problem. Working people will not pay for this crisis. So how does this translate to public policy? Well, on Thursday, Stephen released his provincial budget. Have any of you heard about this budget yet? What's in this budget? Let me tell you a couple things in this budget. One, healthcare spending is frozen. There is no new money for healthcare in this province at all. $0. It's actually a cut when you count for inflation. Number two, tuition fees for university students are entirely deregulated. They are calling it a market readjustment. Education should not be in the market to begin with. On an environmental file, $600,000 for sustainable transportation initiatives has been cut, and the Department of Environment, already one of the few lowest funded departments in our government, has been cut even further. There is not a single dollar in this budget for childcare and early childhood education so that our kids get the head start that they need. But guess what is in the budget? Millions upon millions more for corporate welfare, just like the Liberals did with $22 million to the Royal Bank last week. But what about the federal scene? After almost a decade of the Harper government, we've seen $36 billion in cuts to public health care. We have seen housing, federal housing funding cut entirely. We've seen a total lack of action on climate change. We saw the cancellation of the Kelowna Accord, which would have boosted finances for First Nations groups across the country. Sisters and brothers, this is what austerity means. It is about making working people, those of us who go to work every day, who try to pay our taxes, who try to take care of our kids and struggle to get by, to pay for a crisis created by the ruling class and created by the banks. We cannot accept the austerity agenda. Which brings us to our next point, which is the effect that capitalism has on our climate. I think it's important that we understand that capitalism is why we are in this climate crisis. A constant drive for profit, a constant drive for greed has produced an economy that is slowly killing us, mentally, physically, and destroying our planet. That is what capitalism has done. Climate justice will never be possible under capitalism. Because as long as it is profitable to sell oil, as long as it is profitable to pump natural gas, as long as it is profitable to clear-cut forests, we are not going to be able to solve the climate crisis. This has a name. It's capitalism. It's very simple. Sisters and brothers, the market will not save us. Green capitalism, the idea that somehow we can run this economy in a green and sustainable way, is not possible. We need to make fundamental changes in the way our economy runs if we want to challenge both capitalism and the climate crisis and get real results. So what do we do? What are the demands we need to talk about to build support? What is the organization we require to actually challenge both capitalism and the climate crisis? Well, first off, we need a public program that puts forward the idea that public investment in a non-market trajectory will actually help challenge the climate crisis. Number one, let's build high-speed rail from coast to coast to coast. Number two, let's look at public ownership of energy production, making sure that our community has a direct say and not oil barons directing the way our economy's energy markets develop. Let's look at retrofitting people's houses to make sure that they are energy efficient. And let's not make it so it's a tax credit so that only rich people get to benefit from it, but let's actually invest in public housing and greening our housing stock across the country. And sisters and brothers, let's also look at the food we eat. We need to be looking at transitioning our economy or our agricultural economy to an entirely organic system. We've got examples around the world where this has been done. Cuba has transitioned to an entirely organic agricultural system. It can be done and it should be done. But sisters and brothers, having the public policy items is not enough. Knowing what needs to be done, having the research to back up what we're saying, is not enough to convince politicians and the 1% to actually take action. We need to be organized and we need to take action in communities across this country to make it happen. And that means building a broad political coalition that will challenge capitalism and will challenge the austerity agenda. It means uniting the labor movement, the women's movement, students, environmental groups, First Nations, national minorities, the disabled, artists, and more across the country into a force that is capable of fighting the ruling class and fighting for climate justice. That's what it takes. And today, sisters and brothers, it's not the start. We're somewhere in the middle of this struggle, but it is a great day to be out here for our march. I want to give some big kudos to the folks who organized this rally. A big round of applause for the folks who were the organizers. And sisters and brothers, if you're interested in joining the struggle against capitalism and for climate justice, I encourage you to check out solidarityhalifax.ca. Think about joining, think about becoming a supporter, and help us organize to create alternatives to capitalism here in Nova Scotia and across the country. So I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite chants. It was developed during the Occupy movement, which put income inequality back on the agenda and made it possible for us to be publicly talking about capitalism again. Imagine that. So here's your chant. We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. We are unstoppable. Another world is possible. We are unstoppable.
Wow, that was great. So in just a few minutes, we are going to head down to City Hall, and Rad Rhythms is going to lead us there.